Okay, so the reason why I'm going to do this lesson for you guys is we're very lucky to have garden space here. And as you can see, we have plenty of space that we can use, we can garden things. But there are times that there's many people that don't have the space to garden outside, or they live in condominiums and apartments. So this is actually a very great way to create a small container garden in your house, in your classroom, in your office, anywhere you want to be able to grow something. And as a gardener myself, I like to use different methods because it's very easy to go ahead and put on the ground if you have the ground. If you don't have the ground, this will work just as fine. And sometimes container gardens, something like this, can be much more easier and much more manageable because you're only taking care of this space right here. And you can also control the soil of it because unfortunately, unless you take your soil and send it off to the UF soil testing site, we really will never know what your soil actually has. And that's a whole another science behind soil testing. If you're a true gardener, usually what they do is they collect their soil in a big Ziploc bag. They send it off to UF, the soil department, and then the soil report will come back and tell you all the nutrients that the soil has. But it's actually pretty expensive. So sometimes some people don't want to go out of their way. So what they do is they do container garden because then you can actually buy the soil yourself at some type of supermarket or, hardware store. And then you know that soil has been sanitized, it's good soil. And as you know that when you go to the hardware store to buy soil, there are endless bags of types of soil, right? Does anybody know how many there are?
Few hundred.
220?
Probably not that many, but no, it's probably, there's probably a good over, my God, depending on where you go, every store has different soil, but I would say there's probably over 100 types of soil, and it can be very confusing why this is soil, why this is soil-less, why there's container, why there's potting, why there's compost, why yes.
If you go to Home Depot, there's like this outside section that has like a bajillion bags of different soil.
Exactly. So soil can be very confusing because now you see like orchid soil, then you see cactus soil, then you see like succulent soil, and you're like, what is all this stuff? It can be very confusing and it can be very expensive because soil for some reason is very expensive because that's what that is. So I sort of got this idea. There's all kinds of self-watering bucket garden kits that people do online, and if you YouTube it, there's all kinds of different styles that people do it. This happens to be the style that I like the most because it's, number one, cost effective, number two, you might have all these materials at home, and number three, it's sort of really easy and sort of things that you can do at home to be able to plant something. So this is what you're going to need. So hopefully you guys are all encouraged to find a bucket. This happens to be a 3-gallon bucket. A lot of the videos that you see online are 5-gallon buckets. You know those big Home Depot buckets that you see? I actually like to keep it small. Like, again, small means less money and easier to manage. So what you're going to do is you're going to find a bucket, any type of container, okay? And then you're going to just need, here are my supplies. I happen to have soil here, but I took a milk carton. You can take any type of jug, plastic jug in your refrigerator, right? And this is going to act like your water reservoir. So the water is going to be stored in here, okay? But water has to come up, right? Water has to sort of water what's the plant inside. Okay, so we're going to use your container to store water, and then you're going to need a PVC pipe. A lot of people have these at home. If you don't, they're very easy. You can buy them at Home Depot. This happens to be 3/4 of an inch, but you can buy a 1/2 inch, whichever you want. But the idea is that this pipe goes into your container, okay? It can be a milk carton, like I said. It can be a juice bottle. It can be anything that I think it should hold at least 1/2 gallon of liquid, okay? You can use a gallon if you have, but if you use a gallon, I would use a 5-gallon bucket just because it's bigger to be able to hold the jug, and it's going to take up a lot of space. To me, I prefer it smaller just because I want more space to grow plants versus it holding a container inside your soil, okay? So this is what you're going to do. And the idea is that we're going to try to do this here. Hopefully everyone, and I'm going to talk to Cherie about, we can find some type of bucket and we can create a row with all the buckets. And we're going to, each of us can sort of manage our own bucket. because this will be a good indication of you managing your whatever crop you want to grow. Okay, so step number 1, you're going to grab your container and we're going to punch holes. I happen to punch holes like at top, right here, right there, right there, right there. Okay, why do you think I'm not punching holes in the bottom?
Because then the water will fall right out.
The water will flow out and then it'll create a big mush area. A lot of the designs that you see with bucket garden kits is out of safety. They'll put a hole right here and they'll put a hole there because if, let's assume your water starts to leak out of here, so it won't sit here and create this mosquito haven with a lot of water and a lot of soil, and then you have muck and mud and become a whole nonsense. So I usually recommend put a hole here, just in case. I like to go in the middle though, just in case. And it also depends if you have it inside your house or indoor somewhere, you don't need to create a hole there because you're gonna manage it. If once we do our row with our buckets, you're gonna need to, and it's outside, you're gonna need to create a hole in it because if it rains, you can't control what's in the water here. It's gonna fill up this container, and then at least this little hole here will allow the water to drip out and not overflow. So let me make my hole really clear here. So this is sort of like a draining hole to make sure you don't get water spillage. Okay, so I created my row here. I created my bucket. My bucket has a hole. My container has a hole. I'm gonna put my container inside the middle, and I'm gonna put my pipe inside the container. Why do you think we put this in here? Yes. To be able to pour water in, because once you cover it, typically at home I use a 5-gallon bucket. So what happens is you don't get to see this. This will actually be covered with soil. So this is your only access to this water reservoir. So the water cycle teaches us that when the water goes down, it sits, the precipitation goes up, and it'll actually kind of pour. It won't pour out of here unless it's full, but what'll happen is it'll sort of keep your soil moist. Okay, so we're gonna put that in there. There's a reserve, and then we're gonna use potty mix. Okay, and the reason why you want to use potty mix is because it is going into a pot. These companies spend a lot of money making sure that their research is soil. Potty mix happens to be here. You can all kind of don't do that. You can kind of pass it around if you want. You want to try this? Potty mix is very fluffy. You can pass it around, go behind you. Okay, potty mix, it's made with a lot of peat moss. It's made with some perlite, which is those little white things you see, and it's made with soil, which is probably compost. But potty mix doesn't compact. If I happen to, you see this compact right here? See how dense it is? You're not gonna get this with potty mix because it's made for the intention that when it goes into a pot, it doesn't compact himself down and it creates air pockets, okay? So, Levi, you wanna go ahead and start putting soil in there? So here, come on this side. Come right here.
I have both dirts.
They're what?
I have both dirts. And they kind of...
What is this?
I don't know, probably some bleach.
Looks like a probably ladybug. Okay.
It looks like a ladybug.
You don't know what a bleach is?
Okay, so start. Go ahead and start putting it around the container.
I have the handful.
You can put it right there. There you go. Here, why don't you each of you come and put some scoops in here? Okay, Levi, next. Go ahead, Theo. Put some scoops in there, and then we're gonna see how we're gonna fill up this container. So, guys, by next week, I want each of you guys to see if you can come up with a container that you can make your own, and then we're gonna place them here in a row to be able to have a container garden. Okay, next. Hannah, come.
I didn't mean to. I didn't.
Okay, anybody else want to help? Casey?
Wait, what?
You want to just put it in there. We're just filling up your container.
Do you watch the WandaVision thing?
Yeah, watch.
I know.
Don't spoil it. He doesn't know.
Wait, you don't
Alex, you want to fill up the container?
So you have no idea who Agatha is?
Notice. No, he knows who Agatha is.
Do you know who Sparky is?
No, don't talk about.
Vera, you want to try? Just put some soil in the bucket.
And I.
Do I have my season here?
Stop! Don't say the spoilers.
I'm not saying anything bad. I'm saying it always ends in a. It's so annoying.
Good job. There you go. Okay, so I'm gonna finish it up here with some. Oh, come! I thought you did. Brody, come.
I didn't do it either.
Okay, come on. Go ahead and fill it.
Only like part of it.
Uh-huh.
A little bit. Once I cast the ranch, we had to do this with cow poop.
Oh yeah, I brought you guys. I love cow poop.
Is it good?
Yeah, cow poop has a lot of nutrients, but you never want to use just cow poop because of the nitrogen. It'll kill your plants.
Isn't like poop fertilizer?
Yes, it's fertilizer. It has to be, and it has to be poop that from animals that only eat vegetation, no meat. So you can use cow, you can use horses, you can use all kinds of stuff.
This wouldn't be further away. It actually has nothing to do with it.
Okay, guys, eyes on me. So, see what I created? I created a bucket that with a very ingenious way, I can store water in here. Do you see my half a gallon container?
Uh-huh.
You don't. You don't see it.
I see a pipe.
You see a pipe.
I see it.
You see it. Well, you know it's there. Okay?
You
So,
can see some of the pasta.
Yeah.
and that's okay because sometimes if you want to use a bigger bucket, that's fine because you won't see it at all. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is that this container is sort of like a water reserve. Because sometimes we forget to water our plants, and that's usually the number one reason why plants die, because there's no one there to give them water. But if you're able to hold most water, then you're basically all you're doing is watering through here. Oh, natural water, and then it's raining, but that's fine. Oh,
That's
so
not.
oh, that's not okay. So we're actually gonna try to grow squash. Squashes are a vine, so they go up. So what we're gonna do is once we start to see them grow, we're gonna put a stake here and we're gonna have them climb the stake, and that's where you notice. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab your seeds, this happens to be squash, and we're gonna make holes. Because you're limited with the amount of space you have here, this one says to spacing, it says 3 to 4 feet, which is a very big space, think about it. But we're gonna try to do, I'm gonna say 3. Do we do 4? I don't know. Let's see. It says 3 feet spacing, which is very far, because squashes get very tall and they get very bushy. So we're gonna try one right here.
Let's try 3.
Let's try 3. So here is your squashies. It kind of looks like pumpkin seeds, right?
You put it in a bucket.
Huh?
Pumpkin seeds.
Yes, you can grow anything in the bucket unless it's a root. So not to say you can't grow potatoes but if you're gonna grow a root in something like this, it can't be something that has a big root like a potato, because a potato's not gonna have space to grow, or even a carrot. Like I have radishes at home growing in my bucket, but I have the variety of radishes that are real tiny, the red ones. So they have some space here to sort of grow. So we're gonna put 1 seed in here.
Yeah, that's what I was asking because I didn't know if it was.
Yes, you can. So this kind of, have you ever seen a hydroponic growing garden that grow their things in container?
Yeah.
Okay, sort of the same concept, but we're not. So okay, we put 3 in there, and I'm gonna cover this a little more just so we're gonna try to grow the squashes, summer squash. So these seeds are gonna be for all of us. So if you can, by next week, find yourself a bucket. It can be a 3 gallon, it can be a 5 gallon. And we all have these buckets at home laying around in a garage or in the shed and anywhere you want. And then find yourself a half a gallon container. It can be a milk carton, It can be some type of plastic that we're gonna do this, all of us, next week, and we're gonna make a roll out of this. And this will give us another opportunity to see what does better, in the ground, or I don't think it's a matter of doing better, I think it's a matter of choice. And if you have an apartment, if you live in an apartment, a lot of people do this in an apartment because they don't have the space, and it's very easy, as you can